This is EOMZO, one of Fortnite's best players with over $200,000 in earnings, but his story wasn't without controversy.
I literally just missed out on $70,000. Like, why are you crying? Why would I not cry?
But before we talk about that, let's go back to the beginning. Jackson EOMZO Fretz was born on September 21st of 2006, and like many other pro players, he played one of the first official Fortnite tournaments to share the Love Cup. He managed to get his first ever earnings a few months later during the World Cup qualifiers, where he would earn $375. However, the World Cup qualifiers took place from April to June of 2019, and if you do the math, you would realize that there is one big issue with this. EOMZO was only 12 years old at the time, and if you're familiar with the Fortnite rules, you know you have to be 13 years old to compete in official tournaments. But hey, let's just keep this a secret. I don't want to get EOMZO banned. But anyways, even though EOMZO didn't make it to the World Cup finals, he wasn't really worried about this at all, and he just continued to have fun playing all of the tournaments. And while he wouldn't usually earn in them, sometimes he would. During the 2019 Winter Royale, EOMZO would earn $1,600, by far his biggest win yet. Now at this point, EOMZO had earned a little over $1,900, which was way better than the majority of competitive Fortnite players. And this is truly where EOMZO decided that he was going to dedicate himself to Fortnite and try to make it to the top, no matter how long or what it took. But his journey from this point wouldn't start out so easy, because just after earning $1,600, it would take him over 7 months until he would have his next win. On July 18th of 2020, EOMZO managed to place 19th during the DreamHack semifinals, which qualified him into the finals. It was a solos tournament, and out of the 100 players, he got 44th. Although this wasn't a huge accomplishment, it did make the point that he was a player to be reckoned with, and he took home $250. Then in the Chapter 2 Season 3 solo FNCS, EOMZO managed to make it past the open qualifiers. However, he fell just short of qualifying, placing 33rd, where you needed the top 25 to make the grand finals. Regardless, EOMZO knew he had no other option but to keep pushing further. Later in the Chapter 2 Season 4 True FNCS, however, EOMZO once again didn't make the grand finals. Things weren't going exactly to plan for EOMZO. That being said, he would find success during the Frosty Frenzy, where he was able to earn $1,200. EOMZO would continue to play tournament after tournament, earning here and there, and he would finally have his first major breakthrough during the Chapter 2 Season 7 FNCS, where he would qualify for his first ever grand finals with his trio Chucky and Nut. So on September 4th and 5th of 2021, EOMZO would load up into the grand finals, but unfortunately he finished 26th out of the 33 teams. Although this wasn't the result EOMZO had hoped for, he was only getting started. For the Chapter 2 Season 8 True FNCS, EOMZO decided to team up with Paper and Qua, and this team would push further, finishing in 17th place. Though this wasn't a bad placement by any means, EOMZO knew he was capable of reaching new heights. The next big tournament was the FNCS Grand Royale, and EOMZO would be joined by fellow rising pros Nosh and Degen. The trio would finish in a respectable 9th place, earning $8,000 each. This was EOMZO's best placement so far, so when Fortnite transitioned from trios to duos going into 2022, EOMZO decided to stick with Degen. However, they only placed 22nd in Chapter 3 Season 1. Nevertheless, they were contested all spawns, so they wouldn't let this performance get to their head. Then in Chapter 3 Season 2, they ended up placing a solid 7th place. Despite their successes, they decided to part ways heading into the next season. EOMZO then teamed up with Jamper, and they would finish just a tad bit worse than the prior season, finishing in 8th. Although EOMZO wasn't a top tier player yet, he was moving in a great direction and was able to maintain a consistent skill level. That's one of the biggest challenges for a lot of these upcoming Fortnite pros, is that they might place high in one event then low in the next. EOMZO was consistently making it to the grand finals, often finishing around the top 10. After closing out 2022 on a strong note, EOMZO knew he had to lock in for the 2023 season and try to make a name for himself. This upcoming year would have a little bit different FNCS format. Players had 4 opportunities to qualify for the Global Championship, which would take place at the end of the year. Major 1, Major 2, Major 3, and finally the Last Chance Major. The top teams from each major would get a chance to play in this LAN event, and that was EOMZO's goal. So EOMZO and his newfound duo Rise went into the first major of the season hoping to come out on top. They were dominating the FNCS qualifiers, and going into the grand finals, they made sure to put in the work in order to prepare for the FNCS. But when it comes down to game day, day, anything can happen. EOMZO and Rise managed to place third, by far EOMZO's biggest achievement at this point. This was truly a great moment for him, as he came so far from his first earnings, struggling at points, all while improving steadily throughout the whole time. On top of this, he earned $25,000. However, he knew he couldn't get complacent, so he would focus on the next FNCS at hand. But it was right at this time when Fortnite announced the merge of NA East and NA West servers into one big NA Central server. And for EOMZO and Rise, this change meant that they would be competing against even more players than before, having to deal with some really good players coming over from NA West like Reed. So with this in mind, they would learn as much as they possibly could from their mistakes, ironing them out and continuing to practice. In the end, they would place 4th in Major 2. Although this wasn't an improvement from the previous season, going into the next season, things would change big time for EOMZO and Rise. They had been landing at the castle split drop spot all chapter, and within the season, a vault was added that had a guaranteed mythic flapjack and slurp juices. And with this new change, they would start off the season by winning 3 duo cash cups, showcasing their dominance. So heading into the grand finals, they were fan favorites. On August 12th and 13th of 2023, EOMZO and Rise would queue into the grand finals. That said, they would finish in 3rd place. Although for most players this would be a fantastic placement, this wasn't the result the two had hoped for, so it was quite disappointing. This did, however, qualify the duo straight into the global championship of that year in Copenhagen. The duo would place in a respectable 8th place at the LAN, and considering it was all the way in Europe and it was their first ever LAN, this was a pretty good placement. And because of these factors, they decided to run it back in 2024. On February 24th of that year, day 1 of the FNCS Grand Finals took place, and EOMZO along with Rise would absolutely dominate. After day 1, they were in 1st place. It was looking like all of their hard work and perseverance would finally pay off. In day 2, game number 1, they managed to place 3rd with 5 elims. Then in game 2, they got a mediocre 15th place with 3 eliminations. By this point, they were still in 1st place with a 39-point lead over 2nd. However, there would be a major roadblock in their way. Their internet would completely go out in the following 2 games, and it was actually because they were DDoS. This was devastating for EOMZO. Despite all the effort they put in, everything fell apart due to something out of their control, and because of this, they finished in an underwhelming 8th place.
Like, I literally just missed out on $70,000. Like, why are you crying? Why would I not cry? Like, what? I've never cried in this game once. That shit made me just so emotional, bro. Cry, bro? I already did, bro, for 30 minutes.
But at the end of the day, they knew they could win at FNCS as long as they continued to put in the work. However, this wouldn't happen as they would only place 10th in Major 2 of 2024. Although this wasn't a bad placement by any means, it wasn't a high enough placement to get them qualified to the LAN event at the end of the year. So for his last chance of qualifying for Globals, EOMZO and Rise decided to part ways. Luckily for EOMZO, Tayson was also looking for a duo. Fortunately, EOMZO was able to convince Tayson to move all the way to Texas. That's right, Tayson, the 5-time FNCS winner from Europe. So with this announcement, fans expected this duo to qualify for Globals easily. Despite that, they fell short of expectations, finishing 15th in Major 3. This also wasn't good enough to qualify for the Global Championship. Fortunately for EOMZO, however, he was invited as a backup player to compete with the EU player Cheeps, but after a misfiled form, he was disqualified from the LAN. By this point, you can easily make an argument that EOMZO is the unluckiest player in Fortnite history, but feel free to comment down below what you think. Anyways, heading into 2025, Fortnite announced that the game mode would be switching from the duos format back to the trios format, and this meant that everyone was looking for a new team, including EOMZO. This would lead him to go trio with Higgs and the one and only Clicks, and in Major 1 of 2025, EOMZO and his trio would finish in 3rd place, earning $17,000. Even though this was an incredible finish, all EOMZO wanted to do was win an FNCS championship. So heading into Major 2, EOMZO knew he had to lock in. The Chapter 6 Season 2 Trio FNCS Grand Finals took place on April 26th and the 27th. I've actually made a video covering the entire Grand Finals with the game-by-game breakdown, if you want to check that out. But to quickly recap, throughout the entire Grand Finals, it was a 2-head horse race between EOMZO's trio and Peterbot's trio. Going into Game 12, the final game, all EOMZO needed was a great game and for Peterbot to go early. And to say the very least, this was one of the most intense games of FNCS history.
Clicks gets in with the baseball bat. We going in. We're swinging for the fence. It's a strike. Via goes down. EOMZO up. Higgs still healthy. EOMZO goes down. It's just Higgs. It's all up to Higgs. The solo clutch. Come on, Higgs. Is it a 1v1 for Higgs? Come on, Higgs. Come on, Higgs.
But Higgs is going to hold on to that one. Gets the revive. Finishes.
EOMZO gets up. EOMZO finishes him. How does EOMZO win that? The res. What? No! He pulls out the big pot! He doesn't know! He's getting beamed! Wait, EOMZO needs to push him! It's a 3v2!
They're ready to take it by force right now because the fight.
Here's a shot, EOMZO.
He needs the surge.
They have the chug jugs. They're 500 above. They're fine. Pete needs it. Pete goes down to surge. EOMZO.
That is their elimination.
It's 2v2.
That is their storm surge, and that is their chance to win.
Did Cole get damaged? Is Cole above? Is he getting tagged?
On the other side, he hit a massive shot.
Pete Rich on the 2v2 against Higgs and EOMZO. Higgs has the double mythic.
The loot that Higgs now has.
Oh my God, what is happening? Yo, this has to be scripted. Cole dies to Storm. Oh, wait, it's up to Ritual. Ritual has nothing. Ritual goes down.
With EOMZO's trio taking out Peterbot's trio in 20th place, this meant that all EOMZO's trio needed to win the FNCS was 11 points. But unfortunately, this wouldn't happen as EOMZO's trio would only get 19th place with 6 eliminations.
That's not enough. How much were they down? No, they go down. They go down. I don't think that's enough.
This meant that Peterbot's trio won the FNCS with EOMZO falling in second. Regardless, EOMZO has been one of the most consistent Fortnite players within the past 2 years. I believe we can see EOMZO take home the FNCS championship in the next FNCS. But anyways, thanks for watching. Subscribe and like the video if you haven't yet, as it means a lot, and feel free to watch this video if you haven't seen it yet.